Well, it looks like I have noon Central Time. Hello, and thank you all for joining our webinar today. My name is Brandon Schulte, and thank you for joining Hannah and I as we talk about driving engagement with Marketo Interactive webinars.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining.
So a little about us before we get started, and then we'll jump into the presentation. Zirous is a longtime Adobe partner, Adobe Silver partner. We work with about 100 Adobe customers per year on different platforms, including Marketo and Marketo Interactive Webinars. My name is Brandon Schulte. I'm our Vice President of Sales and Marketing Technology here at Zirous. So work with a lot of customers along with Reagan, and as you guys go through the process to buy software. See a few familiar names here on the call today. So thank you guys for working with us in the past. And I'd like to have Hannah say hi. She's also going to be presenting with me here today as well.
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm a solution consultant here at Zirous. I work in the MarTech division, and I also help within our marketing operations division as well with their digital marketing strategy. So thanks for everyone for joining today, and hopefully we do a lot of learning with our interactive webinars.
So I think a few of you have probably seen interactive webinars. I know it came out at Adobe Summit, not the one this past April, but the one prior to that, talking about the launch of Marketo Interactive Webinars, which launched at the end of, I guess that would be 2022. Obviously, it's a great addition to the platform, something that has caused a lot of value. So today we're going to talk through the value proposition for Marketo Interactive Webinars and why it could be as good solution for you for your webinar needs. We're going to talk a little bit about the packages and features related to the products and services. And then Hannah's going to spend the bulk of the time getting in the platform and giving you a live demo. I'm not sure how many of the folks on the call have used interactive webinars before or not, but we're going to kind of show you all parts of the process. So setting up the webinar, setting up the programs in Marketo, actually jumping in to set up the content, doing your email campaign, showing what a live webinar looks like. Obviously, we're in the platform here today, so you guys are seeing it live here now. And then what happens after the fact as well. So we're going to really try to give you a full, complete picture of what it takes to set up and execute a Marketo Interactive webinar. And then we do want to save time for questions as at the end as well. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go along. I'm happy to try to answer questions as we go. And then we'll give you our contact information for after the session as well if you wanted to follow up with us directly on any additional questions. So to start off, we're going to kick it off with a poll. Would love to understand how interested you guys are in using Marketo Interactive Webinars. And this is obviously a great feature that you can use in the webinar as you go through. So looks like there's a lot of interest. For Marketo Interactive Webinars. So you guys are definitely in the right place here. But great way to kind of drive engagement, especially in a webinar platform where you're not able to directly engage with people with question and answers in a lot of times. So I'm going to broadcast the results here. And in terms of the main value proposition for the interactive webinars is the ability to leverage the platform you already have to really streamline your event management. So, as well as with your marketing automation. So, you guys already own Marketo, you already have the license for it. All of the packages come with 12 webinars per year. You can certainly add upon that as well. But it's a way for those of you that do webinars either infrequently or every once in a while to really leverage the platform to not have to have the additional cost. Plus, everything's built within Marketo, which is hugely helpful. The next big thing that value proposition is the ability to really gain those insights into the webinar and execute those on your campaign. So obviously you guys are in the engagement business with customers, moving them through the marketing and sales funnel, being able to use Marketo Smart List to access features like who attended different webinars or events, what their engagement was, only helps to drive both things in terms of lead score for when they're sales ready, but also in terms of the content that people are seeing to make sure that you're ultimately nurturing them to where they need to be. The last piece is obviously the reduced cost of total ownership. If you're investing in another platform, whether that be some of the other big players out there, or maybe it's piggybacking on another platform that you already have internally, like a Teams or a Google Meet or something like that. By having it in Marketo, you're able to really have the value, present a great experience for your customers, while also saving costs as well. And as you can see from some of the stats there on the right-hand side, webinars are a big piece of B2B marketing. And a lot of times it's not only a successful format, but it's one that marketers use more often than almost any other format. All right. I am going to jump to the next slide and talk a little bit about some of the interactive webinar features. But before I do that, I have another poll question. So for those of you guys that are using a webinar provider today, what provider are you using? And then it's okay if you're not as well, but definitely wanted to kind of see what's being out there in the marketplace so we can kind of compare and contrast, especially as Hannah goes through the presentation about some of the features of Marketo interactive webinars and how they might compare to other vendors that you may use. So I'm seeing a good amount of interest. See, it looks like some Zoom and some GoToWebinar, which are definitely two that we see very often as well. All right, so I'm going to broadcast the results in the poll as well. So the main thing, I kind of already alluded to it, is it's included in your subscription. As you can see with the select package, you have up to 12 sessions that you can run and up to 500 people per session. So, for most, SMB, mid-market type businesses, that's going to be perfectly adequate for your webinar program. But if you do more, you can either bump up to the Prime package if you already have the Prime package, which gives unlimited sessions, or you can purchase an add-on through your Adobe Customer Success Manager or Strategic Account Manager, which will allow you to have unlimited number of sessions, and then also you can have up to 1,000 people per session. For those of you that need even more than that, you have the ability with the Ultimate package to hold concurrent sessions of up to 2 at the same time if you're running lots and lots of webinars. The other biggest advantage, while a lot of those partners that we saw are launch point partners and have integrations with Marketo, um, obviously Marketo interactive webinars being all within the platform, everything from the nurturing side to actually executing the campaign and program in the webinar being internally is super helpful. So it really helps compress that campaign to webinar to lead nurturing to deal cycle all the way through in one spot, and then having those additional values and engagement from the webinar back that you can use leverage in terms of the smart list is hugely helpful as well. The other big thing that you're backed up, not that those other platforms don't have rich streaming capacity, but you're using Adobe Connect, which is the Adobe streaming platform built within Marketo, has a very robust infrastructure to be able to handle the types of traffic and engagement that you're seeing. And then last but not least, Marketo's really worked overall to provide for a very engaging platform that gives a lot of value for you to be able to run these, webinars time and time again, and drive demand for your products. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Hannah so you can see the program in action.
Thanks, Brandon. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Okay. So first, I would like to point out when creating a interactive webinar is you'll need to start with the pre-program setup. So within your admin tab of your Marketo instance here, we have a tab for interactive webinars. Previously, when we were creating event programs within Marketo, we would use Launchpoint to connect to other platforms such as GoToWebinar. But instead now, we have this interactive webinar setting where we can add users who are eligible to create new interactive webinars. So you first must give yourself access before doing any creating, otherwise it will not let you create that new program. Another thing to point out is this is where you can find your license usage information. So you have when this license expires. So if you wanted to sign up to get a new license, so you can start hosting more events, that would be done here. You can see that change, and you'll be able to see how many events you can host, your capacity, so all the storage required for recording those videos and holding those, within your webinar program. So all that information is here within your admin section of the instance. And another thing to point out would be the tags. So when we are working in the webinar channel, be wary of the success steps that you want to use for this program in case there's a specific action that you want your customers to take in order to consider this a success. So this is just the default options that you will see for your webinar channel in addition to the success steps on the side.
And that's hugely important if you're using Performance Insights. So for those who use Performance
Yeah.
Insight, you realize how important those tags are, and making sure you're appropriately tagging the information so you can see the analytics from it after the fact as well.
Yeah. So again, just want to stress the fact that first you'll have to add your users to this box here in order for them to have access to the webinars. Okay, so in order to save some time, I did create a demo program just to demonstrate today so that we weren't building it from scratch and that I could just highlight the key points and takeaways when creating a program. So the first recommendation would be to create a template version of the interactive webinar so that you can use this for future webinars going forward. So you want to make sure it is somewhat standardized with like a registration form that would correspond with future webinars. So again, we can clone this program and reuse it in the future, or you can also create one from scratch by right-clicking, new program, changing to event program type, webinar channel, and this is where you'll see the option of creating an interactive webinar. If you do not have access as a user, this pop-up will not appear, so make sure you get access first. Okay, so now I would like to highlight the free program setup. So this will be like all your promotional content. This will be your invitations that'll get sent out, your registration, um, your reminders, all of that content first. And then I'll get into actually the design of your interactive webinar. So as you can see on your screen, how it looks like, how we get to this design, and how you can customize it depending on the type of webinar that you're giving. And then I'll wrap up with the post-webinar information. So like where to find your recording links, how to promote that to your customers, how to add it to your site, that sort of thing. So here within our program, we have our smart campaigns and our local assets. Our local assets would be like our registration landing page, our registration form, all that information would live here. And then smart campaigns would be controlling the actions. And the first place to start off would be just your organization of all of your smart campaigns and your local assets. So it's good to have some sort of a numbering scheme to make sure everything is nice and organized. And again, this is helpful for down the road when you're hosting future webinars, just so you can clone this going forward and everyone's on the same page. So the very first step would be to create a process registration smart campaign. And that is because we want the registration to be running when the first invite is sent. So the minute someone clicks on a link or fills out the registration form, then they will be considered a member of this program. Um, so the very first step would be to create this and have this running in the background. This is a trigger campaign, so it's always listening for someone to fill out their registration form, which I'll review here in a moment what that would look like. So we're listening for this action to be done, and then in the flow step, we have these series of actions that will then take place. So you'll want to change their program status to registered because we want to give them credit for signing up for the event. And this is also important when considering the join link as well. So every person who gets registered for a interactive webinar will have a unique join code. And I can show you what that would look like here within the registration confirmation. And this join code is populated using a token, and a token is like a placeholder. Within Marketo, it's using the member.webinar URL token. So again, this is unique to the individual, so we want to be sure that this is populating for the user to see. So here is my Save to Google Calendar button. And I'm showing you at the bottom left hand of the screen, we have our link being displayed. And this is a custom link that I've created to add this event to their calendar. In addition to, it has the start date, the title, everything spelled out. In addition to, in the middle of the URL, it has that member.webinar URL token. So that will be where they'll get that unique join code. I do have a resource on how to create this specific custom link. For those who are interested, I can share that at the end of the webinar. So that is how the token is added to the link. This is a token within Marketo. It's not something that you need to create. It's there ready for you to use. So you want to be sure that this person is a registered member of the program. Otherwise, Marketo won't know that they need a join link. So make sure you're updating their program status. And then it is also important to include a short wait step here. We've noticed some issues that the token isn't pre-filling if there isn't a wait step. This is just because we need to give Marketo some processing time to get that token populated. So again, this is very crucial in having a smooth transition. And then we will send out that registration confirmation. And then it is also best practice to include the steps of updating their acquisition date and acquisition program so that we are crediting this program for this Marketo record. And here's an example of how another type of token can be used with this updating the date time for this token. So it'll update it to the time they have filled out this registration form. So again, this would be the very first step. This would need to be set up before your invite is sent out. And we can move on to the send invite. So for this, you can do it a couple ways. You can use Smart Campaigns and just an email asset to send out the invite, but we recommend using a email program to get this sent because you get the feature of using recipient time zone, which is often beneficial when hosting webinars. So that is just another little tip of best practice for sending out email invites and what it could look like. And then here, I'm just going to edit the invite email asset so you can see what this looks like. Okay, this is just a generic example of what you might have included within your invite. So it has like the title of the event. And here I am using a token to populate this, which I can show you how to create here in a moment. That way you just don't have to insert the text every single time and you can just add it as a token. We also have tokens being used within the subject line here with the date and the webinar type being pre-filled. And then we are also using a person token within the body of the email. So we are adding the lead.firstname token. So when someone is a known Marketo record in the database, they'll see their first name be populated as just a little personalization tool. So to show you what this could look like, I'm going to switch the view and add my user specifically so you can see how that would pre-fill. There we go. So as you can see, we have the title being filled, our date, in addition to my first name because I am a known Marketo record. And then we also have a link to our registration landing page. So before I move on to the landing page, I want to take a step back and show you how to create those tokens. Within the program level, so your blue calendar icon here, you can find the My Tokens page. And this is where you can add all of those individual My Tokens is what we call them. So far, we've used the member.webinar URL token for creating that specific join link. In addition to these My Tokens, you can also create the system tokens to get that current date. So there's a wide variety of how these can be used, and we recommend using them as just a sort of best practice throughout your webinars. Okay, so that is how they're created. And then after you click that button, it would navigate you to the registration landing page. So I'll take you there and show you what that would look like. Okay, so here's just a generic example of what it could look like. Here we are demonstrating how we also have tokens within our landing page with that title being pre-filled with our date. And here's our registration form. And again, I wanted to emphasize for forms specifically as well, it's good to keep them somewhat standardized so that when you are cloning and reusing your interactive webinars, the colors and everything sort of mesh well with future interactive webinars and you don't have to start from scratch every single time. So it's good to keep something that's nice, clean, organized, and a good layout. Okay. And then, yep, here's our form where that would live. Okay, so once that invite is sent out and people start registering, we want to send an invitation reminder for those who did not fill out the form. So again, we're using a email program to send out this reminder so we can utilize the recipient time zone feature. And then here you will just want to cater down your smart list to that specific group of people that you want to target. So specifically those who were invited, who are part of this program, and they did not fill out that registration form, we want to send them this reminder. And then you can schedule it out on the day you want it to be sent. And then last step would just to be approve it. And then the reminder last chance, that would be the same exact thing. So this can just be cloned and recreated with that invited status, program status, and haven't filled out the form. So that is all your pre-setup that you'll need to do before actually getting into the interactive webinar and start customizing things on that level. Just be wary of that, have those things set up and running beforehand. And then you can get to your actual webinar design. So if you did create one from scratch, it would ask you questions about like the duration of the interactive webinar, who your co-host would be, the time of the event, and it'll also mention your maximum capacity for your audience. And then it will take you to this page. So this is like the main page for your interactive webinar. Here you can add your hosts after you start designing your webinar, and this is also the same page where you can find your webinar recording. So here I'm going to start designing my webinar. And that will take me to this lobby area where I can choose a room. And you can choose a previously made room as well, or you can create a new one. After doing so, you will have various options for webinar templates. And within each of these templates, you will have various layouts that you can switch throughout the webinar. So for example, for the workshop session template, we have 5 layouts here. And you can navigate throughout the webinar, go back and forth to whatever makes sense, whatever kind of topic you're presenting at the time. For example, icebreaker, breakout rooms. I can show you how to navigate throughout these breakout rooms. You can also customize the pods that the audience will see within these rooms. So there is a lot of customization involved within all of these layouts. Okay. And then once you select your template, you have that good to go. You can go ahead and select Use Template. This is just giving you a pop-up of additional options to create. I'm just going to close out of that for now. And then you'll get this success message. Then after doing so, you will exit out of this page, refresh your Marketo browser. And you'll be able to log back into your webinar. As you can see, it said enter your webinar instead of design. So we can see that those effects took place. Okay. So this is the default screen that you'll be seeing. As you can see on the left-hand side, we have a pod for the icebreaker. I'll stop sharing that for now. And then on the right-hand side, we have a list of all of our attendees, your hosts, presenters, and your participants. And then also a chat functionality as well. you can customize this further with various pods. You can drag these around. You can close out of them by doing so, on clicking on these three little dots here, hide pod, or you can also bring it back. So there is a lot of customization depending on how you want this to look. On the right-hand side, we have all of our layouts. I'm on the icebreaker page, but I can flip through all of these various screens on the introduction page, breakout room, review, and wrap up. On this layout, we do have a breakout room created, but for example, the basic template does not have this as like a default option. So I can show you how to create that. A few other things just to point out, we have some engagement options here with reactions or requests. So if someone's speaking too loud or too slowly, you can ask that that be changed. And then you can also just do generic settings here. The main things I wanted to point out are under this icon. This is where all of our pods live. So these boxes are all considered pods. You can navigate various polls, you can have Q&A sessions, you can enter a quiz. All these can be added and shuffled around depending on the scenario. If you want to upload a file, you can do so. For example, we've uploaded our presentation file to our webinar. This PowerPoint could be shared. Web links as well. You can enter some links for your audience to copy. For example, the custom link, the custom URL link, I've added that to our webinar today for you to grab at the end of our session, so that could be used. And it's very simple to create a new poll, for example. Here's a default option that was previously created. Drop your icebreaker answers here. So you can adjust them, you can hide them. If you ever want to delete a pod, you can, I did that a little fast, you can click on your icon here, you can select manage pods, and that will bring up all the current pods that are created. So you can change the name here, you can delete them, make all those sort of edits. Another cool thing to point out would be the custom pods. If you click on this link, that will take you to another Adobe page where it walks you through all these customized pods. So for example, I've downloaded a couple today, like the word cloud and Adobe clock, but there are there's a ton of options.
Hey, Hannah, there's a question in there about, can you
Mhm.
take the participants off so people can't see them? I believe you can take that pod off, but since you're in there, I figured we'd have you show that
Yeah,
if
you
possible.
can manage their roles. And let's see, like this whole pod, for example.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, yep, you can take that away. And you can also manage someone's roles as well if you wanted to change that throughout the webinar. Because, for example, a host would have greater access than a presenter would, and they would have more access than a participant.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. So when you, I'm going to hop back to the screen. When you enter one of these customized pods, you can learn more, and that will take you to a download link. And it's really simple to upload those to your pods. You just upload it as a document within one of your empty pods here. And you can browse from your computer. Let's see, that one. And then that will just fill within your pod. And then you can adjust all the settings here, enter a title. If you want to add some sort of limit, you can do so. So it's just another engagement tool to get your audience more involved. Okay, another couple things to point out, this is where you would record your session in addition to the backstage area. So this is only available to your hosts. Your participants wouldn't be able to see this. This contains all of your engagement interaction. So if you are having a lot of engagement with polls or quizzes, you can track all those metrics here. You can have a chat between your speakers here, so that it's a private view, or if you had notes to share as well, you can have those there. So Backstage is really beneficial for hosts to just track the engagement of your session. Let's see. Yes, an engagement dashboard, that's the same thing. That will take you to your Backstage area. So it's really fun with interactive webinars. You can customize them depending on the type of webinar you're giving, um, make it very personalized and interactive. There are a lot of customized pods to offer. I even saw one, yeah, there's a word search pod as well. So it can get really fun with these options, in addition to the breakout rooms. Okay, and then here within our attendees pod, we can adjust the breakout rooms and have those created. And as you can see, it's switched to breakouts 1 through 3. You can start it, you can edit them, you can increase how many breakouts there are depending your audience size and so on. Okay, so those are the main things I wanted to display within the interactive webinar. Um, Again, put it in the chat if you have any questions on anything, but I'm going to move on to the post setup and on-demand functionality. Okay, so after we have finished our webinar, interactive webinar recording, it should take 45 minutes to an hour for that recording to finish processing. But once it does, you should see it within the overview tab of your webinar. Here, for example, this is a past webinar that we gave. You can view the recording, you can download it, you can copy the recording link and upload it. So if you wanted to upload it to like a site, if you have a YouTube page, your company YouTube page, for example, we have ours uploaded here. You can do so. You can by exporting it. You can add it to a Marketo landing page, or you can also send it as an email, which I have as an example here for our no-shows who couldn't join for this demo. So here within our email program, you can add the link to join this webinar recording. And once someone does watch the recording, Marketo will listen for this to happen, and it will automatically change their program status from no-show to attended on demand. So they will get credited for watching the recording. So you can just add it as a link here to this button so that they can view so. And then if someone also doesn't join the webinar, but they still have the event in their calendar, they can also use their join link after the webinar is ended, and that will take them to the recording as well. So it will just navigate them that way. So there are a lot of opportunities to still nurture those who didn't attend and to still promote your webinar afterwards. In addition to the recording, you can also track your metrics and how it performed within the dashboard level of the webinar. So once it's done, you can see how many people attended, how many didn't, versus the performance of your polls, or if you had quizzes or any sort of engagement, those metrics could be tracked here. Okay, and then the last step would be to add a measure of program success, because we want to track those who successfully completed the program so that we can nurture those further. So you want to include anyone who attends event, or you can also choose those who click the link on that email. So that would be like the recording link. If you wanted to, you can also use all these constraints to break it down further. So if they were a specific event mode, or if they had to answer to a certain number of polls, you can collect those individuals. So you can really filter down your smart campaign to for those specific people who perform those actions that you're looking for. And then you can just update their program status, which is our success step within the channel of our webinar channel. One thing to note is for your hosts and presenters, the people that you have added to your program and also the users within the admin tab, they will not get a link to join the event. They'll have to use their Marketo link to sign in. So for example, with our webinar today, Brandon here has his own specific join link that he used to sign in because otherwise that link wouldn't work because it doesn't consider the co-hosts or presenters as a member of the program. So they're not like a lead to nurture to. Okay. So those are all of the things I had to cover for interactive webinars. Sounds like Brandon, you've been managing the chat. Is there anything that we haven't covered?
Yeah, there's a couple good questions there. So Kimberly had a question about they're in a highly regulated industry. They wanted to see if she could pre-record the webinars ahead of time to make sure they're like we reviewed for like compliance and then load it in. I would think you could do that. Just I mean, it's almost like an on-demand webinar that's scheduled at a certain time. But anything else that you'd like to add on to that, Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a setting within the interactive webinar that I found to like pre-run to like schedule it out. Um, but that could be something that could be done perhaps soon, if not now. Um, but yeah, there isn't anything like within the setup that would allow that currently.
Yeah, I'll check. We'll do some checking with Adobe on that to see how
Yeah,
they would
might be up
handle
and
that.
coming.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess you could use the functionality to essentially like do a webinar like we're doing today, and then essentially send that link out at the time. Now, if you want to do some sort of hybrid thing where like you welcome everybody and then play the recording, that's a
Hmm.
piece I want to check on if that's like the use case where you're like live but not really live. Yep. Okay.
Right.
Yep. And that's essentially what you said there. So yeah, let's do some let's do some legwork on that. We should be able to get back to you on that, Kimberly. Would you be good about dropping your email address in the chat, and we'll follow up and get you an answer back? Or you can email us directly too, if you prefer not to put it in the chat. Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Got it as well. Let's see here. I also wanted to share that web link. I have a link for the custom pod creation that I was showing earlier. Um, like for example, the clock that I was showing on my screen. In addition to that custom URL created with the member token. So you should see that on your screen. There we
Right.
go.
Looks
Okay.
like there's a chat from Jason as well. So is there a pre-event room where the host presenters are prior to presenting to their participants? I, I know we talked a little bit about the hand. I don't believe so. So that's kind of one of those deals as you're leading up to it. It's not like you can have like a go live button. I know I've seen webinar platforms where they have a go live button.
Yeah.
Is there any security that you know of, Hannah, that you can put on top of that to basically say, hey, don't let the presenters be heard until they physically hit a go live or go at a certain time?
Um, no, I mean, you can enter the webinar at any point up until the event, but there's no like extra security. You can use that backstage area while it's presenting, but before the webinar actually takes place, I've not run across that.
Yeah, so it looks like that backstage area. I know Reagan and
Yeah,
Lindsay are chatting in there too, but it looks like that backstage area would allow you to do that type of functionality.
yeah, during the event.
All right. Hannah, anything else that you think would be good for the group? Otherwise, we can put our contact information up there. We'll follow up with a few of these questions
Mhm.
here, specifically you, Kimberly, and then Jason. If we didn't answer your question, feel free to email me, and we can make sure we get you a good answer on that as well. But what? eh, let's pull up our contact information.
Mhm.
Anything else, Hannah, that you wanted to make sure we hit on today before we let the folks go?
Yeah, just those are the main things. Just want to think about your pre-program setup within the admin and then creating your program in addition to your interactive webinar actual design. Um, so those are the main things I wanted to highlight today, but thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate it.